Super Bowl winners throughout NFL history can sometimes blend together. This is not to say they were unworthy of the Lombardi. Simply the teams themselves are easily forgettable. Usually these kind of teams put together a brief run to capture the crown, achieve little else, and then fall away into obscurity. Outside of those dynastic runs, one champion can become indistinguishable from another. Though, of course, it's still much better for them than those organizations whose trophy case still remains empty. The right ingredients for those teams that do separate themselves from other Super Bowl winners begins with a collection of star players on both sides of the ball, some destined for the Hall of Fame. Add a star quarterback into the mix, a legendary head coach, and you start to have the makings of something special. Usually it helps if the fabled team has a unit with a cool nickname, like Blitzburg, or the Big Blue Wrecking Crew, or the No-Name Defense. And others, like Evil Empire. But I digress. You don't get the final component for true greatness without a worthy opponent. The measure of a knight's feat is weighed by the size of the dragon they slay. The Seattle Seahawks 2013 team has become viewed as one of these elite Super Bowl teams of NFL lore. They possessed all the aforementioned ingredients to be considered legendary. Stars all over the football field, a generational quarterback coming into his own, and a head coach with the rare achievement of winning both the national title and Super Bowl trophy. They even had one of the coolest nicknames of all time, the Legion of Boom. But what of the size of the dragon that stood in their path? Only the most prolific offense in NFL history, led by football royalty, that aging field general firing the last bullets from his withered gun. In 2013, Peyton Manning easily won the MVP, setting NFL records for most passing yards and touchdowns in a season. Using his encyclopedic brain, changing every individual player's responsibility pre-snap, and befuddling the NFL with the word Omaha.
Side of the field. Omaha! For the Saints.
Peyton had the best season of his illustrious career. Heading into his 40s and diminished by fused discs in his neck, Peyton by this late stage of his career was struggling to push the ball down the field, leaning heavily on that thin mile-high air and a talented pass score. He had every kind of pass-catching threat a quarterback could ask for. The star and physical freak in Demaryius Thomas, the big-body possession archetype in Eric Decker, the slot specialist in Wes Welker, and a former basketball player at tight end that moved like a wide receiver in Julius Thomas. Every pass may have looked like a wounded duck, but they still landed with that trademark Manning precision. Whatever Peyton's methods, he had chosen the exact right team in free agency to create an offensive juggernaut. They led the league in passing, total yards, and scoring, putting up nearly 38 points per game. This particular Tolkien-esque dragon seemed more to most nationally than the young Seahawks could handle. Now, the commentators and talking heads were thinking logically. On the surface, Seattle's simple defensive scheme seemed a breeze for a savant like Peyton Manning to dissect. Cover 1, cover 3, and oh so much zone. Should be a cinch, right, Peyton? What those folks were missing was this elder, once-in-a-generation offense was going up against a younger, better, once-in-a-generation defense. The Legion of Boom. While it was a reference to their nature for violent impacts on the field, the LOB was also a mentality. Love our brother. They played for one another, covered for one another, and stood up for one another. They brought a swagger that the NFL has rarely, if ever, seen. When you played the Legion, they let you know how badly you were going to get beat while they were given the beating. While other teams huddled, they danced the line of scrimmage like wild dogs waiting to be encaged. They weren't here to trick you with exotic schemes or crafty disguises. The players knew they were bigger, stronger, and faster, and there was nothing you could do about it. Their formula was to stop the run, rally to the ball, prevent the big play, and hit everything that moved. Weekly, offenses would find themselves unable to run, unable to pass, and under a constant collapsing line that quickly left them completely demoralized. There was no safe harbor or strategic counter. The greatness of the players and simplicity of scheme meant you just had to take it. The 2013 Seahawks defense led the league in fewest points allowed, fewest yards allowed, and most takeaways. The holy trinity of defensive team stats, not done since the hallowed 1985 Chicago Bears, those monsters of the Midway. On the other side of the ball, the Seahawks offense were no slouches. They brought plenty of firepower to bear, starting with the team's heartbeat beast mode himself, Marshawn Lynch. The offensive line could maul anybody, and their young budding quarterback was showing signs of being special. He could get out of trouble and extend plays like a magician, and he was already on his way to being one of the great clutch quarterbacks in NFL history. Zach Miller was an outstanding all-around tight end, and though Hall of Famer Chris Carter called them pedestrian, there was a ton of talent in the receiving corps from Golden Tate and Doug Baldwin to Percy Harvin and Jermaine Kearse. 2 weeks prior to this game, in the conference championship, the Seahawks had just vanquished their nemesis, the San Francisco 49ers. Some, in retrospect, called that the real Super Bowl of the year. The game had been a hotly contested bloodbath, but also seemingly saw the Seahawks leave the affair tougher and more resolved in their purpose. The opening pre-game festivities concluded by Willie Joe Namath walking out to conduct the coin flip in his vintage mink coat. The Seahawks deferred, and the Broncos received the kickoff. After a short 15-yard return, Peyton Manning led his high-powered offense onto the field. This pitted the Broncos closer to the end zone and the fans on the lower level.
It's like they took CenturyLink and just smacked it in MetLife Stadium because our fans were the loudest. I think we had the most fans there.
Listen to the 12th man.
A strange stadium ruckus was growing even louder as the teams gathered to huddle. Manning looked a little confused. Was this not a neutral site where his brother played? Why was it so loud? Like they were playing in Seattle Stadium loud. Manning came out of the huddle with a look on his face like he left the oven on back home. He started going through his pre-snap regiment of pointing, gyrating, and shouting. The center could only hear the 12's roar.
There you hear the Seahawk chant going around MetLife Stadium. It almost sounds like home.
The center thought he heard Manning call for the snap and sent the ball whistling past Peyton's ear mid-Omaha. The ball trickled back into the end zone where Broncos running back Noshawn Moreno recovered it. Those that had been screaming loudly took their decibels up another notch as the Hawks defenders signaled safety, while the officials and the rest of the country stared on in confused shock.
I said the snap count, and I called the snap count. You didn't hear me. We gotta go to the silent count. We gotta go to the silent count. I couldn't hear anything, right? Yeah. I called the cadence. You said I was like 3 seconds late. I called it. We should have started with silent. You know, that was yeah.
Silent? We're going silent.
I should have. I was thinking about telling you that. You know, start off silent while they're all hyped up, you know.
12s everywhere erupted. They knew why it was loud, and some of them also noticed the omen as well, as the Seahawks had just scored in the first 12 seconds of the game, thanks to the 12th man. It felt like God himself was winking down from above. Today's your day, Seattle. Russell and company took advantage. It wasn't the flashiest drive, but Wilson extended plays, completed some clutch third down throws, and Percy Harvin ran an end around that just missed going the distance by the heel of his shoe. They secured a field goal and the strong start. This season, the Broncos had the second fewest 3-and-outs in all of football. After their safety on the first drive, Seattle caused just that on their second possession. After a Bronco punt, the Seahawks offense slipped right back into that methodical groove. To no avail, they tried to establish beast mode, but Wilson was at least converting some difficult 3rd and longs to keep their second drive moving and the Broncos backpedaling. Hall of Fame cornerback Champ Bailey had a remarkable career. In college at Georgia, he was an All-American who played offense, defense, and even returned kicks. It's hard for cornerbacks to win the Heisman, but he did crack the top 10 in voting.
On the 109th play of the game for Champ Bailey. 109 plays.
Once Champ got to the pros, he stacked up 12 Pro Bowl seasons, playing for the Washington, to be determined, and then the Broncos. Once fleet of foot, by this point in Champ's career, he had lost a step or two. About midway through the first quarter, angry Doug Baldwin was lined up across from him in the slot, and Doug used his patented release of first-step quickness into a crossover to stymie Champ off the snap. Doug's juke caused Champ to commit the cornerback mortal sin of opening up his hips too early, while also failing to notice the rub route coming to impede him.
Got way behind his defender. Picks up 37. The Seahawks are first and goal. Good round, boy.
Seattle was not quite able to fully capitalize. On 3rd and goal, Russell rocketed a pass into Jermaine Kearse, who appeared at first to have the catch when the defender knocked it away at the last second.
You're a beast. Like I said before, what you do when you be yourself and do that, that's impact, bro. I'm just a fan. I love watching it.
The Seahawks defense was locked into a zone in this game, playing both fast and fearless. Conversely, the Bronco offense felt tentative, the body language of the players defeated, like they were anticipating something bad was just about to happen. Barely through the first quarter, it already felt like the defense had their hands wrapped around the Broncos' throat. And then a play after Chris Clemens ripped out a fumble the Hawks couldn't recover, Cam Chancellor reeled in an overthrown Manning Mallard, wounded by Cliff Avrill's buckshot. The front four caused the pressure, and the secondary was ready to pounce on the mistake, just as Coach Carroll drew it up. The Seahawks offense responded by going back to the fly sweep from earlier. The play worked not just because of Harvin's quicks, but the Bronco linebackers were laser locked in on Marshawn. Here you can see, even as Percy goes in motion, they're staying zeroed in on the beast. After the snap, both safeties drop into cover 2, and Baldwin seals his block nicely to add more open space. It was easy money, or more like stealing. Even with beast mode buried on every carry, the first quarter ended with the Hawks offense moving the ball through a varied attack. And then, to start the second quarter, Marshawn let the Broncos know it would not be so easy to contain him. After an obvious pass interference penalty in the back of the end zone, he bulldozed his way for a touchdown. Breno Giacomini let him know.
Hey, 2-4. Nice job. Isn't it nice having the lead? Nice job.
Can we extend it?
What's that?
Is it all right if we score more points?
Oh, yeah, we can score some more. Hell, yeah, we can score some more. We don't need some more.
Can we?
Yeah, you can.
All right.
We can, we
I
will.
just wanted to make sure.
We will.
Something about the football field brought murderous intentions to Cam Chancellor's heart.
And you gonna feel it every time, boy. I'm gonna kill his ass. Watch. Crosby. I'm gonna kill him.
Throughout this game, Bam Bam was obliterating anyone who entered his zone like they slept with his sister. On the kickoff, after the touchdown, Cam was truly hulking out. He had already laid out Demaryius Thomas and gobbled up an interception, but you could see he was only hungry for more as he outran the rest of the kickoff coverage unit. Knowing the pain Cam could inflict, a blocker meekly stepped up to him, already bracing himself for the car crash to come. Cam turned himself into the Bam Bam 31 bunker buster, first sending the blocker flying, then on his descent he obliterated the kick returner just as he got to full speed. It's what they call in the business a 2-for-1. The gutsy play put him on the turf and out a few plays while he tried to shake off the collateral damage of his own self-destruction. Nearly midway into the second quarter, the Broncos offense finally got their first down of the game. In addition, the Broncos were sustaining the drive, reaching just outside of field goal range for a key 3rd down and 13. Cliff Averill was one of a couple defenders in this game who could have won MVP. On the earlier Chancellor interception, Averill used his lightning get-off to beat the tackle to the edge and rush Manning's throw. On 3rd down, Cliff flipped the script, countering from speed to his bull rush. He caught the tackle oversetting and trying to get a head start to the edge to prevent a replay from earlier. Peyton could smell Averill's breath and tried to get rid of the ball. The dying duck was dead on arrival, floating into the arms of linebacker Malcolm Smith, catcher of Sherman's iconic tip in the prior 49ers game. 22-0. Not even a halftime yet. On the kickoff, Chris Margos ripped out a fumble that was overturned. But here it was again. Another example, another player, play after play, that incessant hunger for the title on full display. The willingness of every man on the field to just go for it, sell out, leave nothing left. It seems such a simple request, yet it may be the hardest thing in football for a whole roster to fully achieve. Even for those teams that have won a championship. But this is just one of the reasons this Seahawks Super Bowl team separates itself from the historical pack. Thanks to a great back shoulder catch by Demaryius Thomas and Manning patiently moving the team up the field, the Broncos found themselves inside field goal range with just under 2 minutes in the second half. The Seahawks defense reinforced their vice grip on the Broncos offense, forcing a 4th down and a surprising decision. Desperation had begun to set in on the Broncos' sideline. A field goal gains them momentum, puts points on the board, salvages some of the half, and perhaps most importantly, exposes a chink in the impenetrable armor of this imposing Seahawk knight.
I'm thinking about going for it.
Let's go, we'll get it.
All right, let's go for it. That's a big-ass play right here, boy.
The Bronco coaches, on the other hand, appeared to feel the ship was sinking. They went for it, and Chris Clemens took his turn to make a play, quickly timing the snap and bending inside around his man, forcing Manning to nearly throw another pick.
Whooping their ass. They think we're gonna get scared of them. We're gonna eat their heart.
This is ugly.
Look about it. Look about it. Look about it. Look about it. I had him too. Where the hell did he come from?
A turnover on downs, and the Seahawks offense took their foot off the gas and drained out the last of the half's clock. Seahawks fans around the world nodded, pumped their fists, and felt good. The Legion of Boom had disassembled the historic Bronco offense like they were playing a college team. The pass rush was fierce, and every member of the defensive backfield had morphed into a loaded weapon. On the other side of the ball, Russell and the boys were holding up their end of the bargain, sustaining drives, keeping the defense fresh, and putting points up on the board. Then came that long-ass halftime. Those Super Bowl halves, with their concert extravaganzas, take so long to finish when you're waiting to see how the game will end. The extra time allowed for one to start inventing scenarios for an epic collapse in their own mind. The Broncos' offense averaged nearly 40 points a game. Coming back from down 22 was theoretically within easy reach. Oh, damn this sudden paranoid consternation. The second half finally began with a bang, but we must first speak of the sad tale that was Percy Harvin. For though his contribution this season and onwards was slight, he did provide some key moments of brilliance in the 2013 season. But more importantly, might have removed the last of the Broncos' hope in one play. A little bit of background first. After the 2012 season, the Seahawks traded for Percy Harvin, sending away a valuable first and third round pick. It felt like the missing piece to the offense. That kind of modern-day Swiss Army knife receiver that could do it all, including subbing at running back from time to time. But Harvin came as damaged goods in more ways than one. Upon arriving at Seattle, he immediately announced the need for a very serious hip surgery that wasn't disclosed when he was initially going through his physicals. The Seahawks doctors advised Harvin to wait for surgery until the end of the season, but Harvin insisted on going under the knife. He went on to miss most of the year, only to return for the Vikings game near the end of the season. It kind of felt at the time like he was returning from his surgery a little too soon, as though he was motivated by a vendetta to go after his former team that had traded him. Whatever the reason, Harvin made some key plays in that Viking game, helping to secure an important victory and hinting at the potential to come. But then that old dodgy hip flared up, and he was out until the first playoff game against the Saints. Finally, he returned, feeling good, ready to go. Seattle built a game plan around Percy, and right from the start, they're executing it well. He's a factor. But then, the Saints' safety went headhunting, and the concussion ended Percy's day and put him on the shelf against the 49ers the next week. Already a factor in the first half of the Super Bowl, Percy Harvin put a nail in the Broncos' coffin on the opening second half kickoff, when he took the kick on a hop, put the pedal down to the floor as flames licked his heels on the way to the end zone. Any last bit of hope or fight the Broncos' sideline still had drained out of their slumped shoulders and frowning faces. Some will say the Harvin trade was one of the worst moves in Seahawks history. The draft capital given up, the handful of games he played, but the man wears a Super Bowl ring and provided an electrifying edge to the offense for which the Broncos had no answers. The largest comeback in Peyton Manning's storied career was 24 points. Seattle was now up 29-0. In the bars, Seahawks fans were already doing victory shots, but the defense didn't seem to get the memo that the game was in the bag. They came out with that same edgy attitude and toughness. The Broncos offense moved the ball, but an interception always seemed near a Seahawk fingertip. And if not that, someone was getting their block knocked off. Cam Chancellor was still reenacting his own personal Vietnam. He was deep in the Mylong Delta, enacting carnage wherever he saw fit. Most of the time, it was a poor Bronco that had strayed too far from the herd.
This is what they have done all season long, is just throttle opposing offenses.
Oh boy, Cam almost murdered the guy.
But sometimes it was a teammate. Collateral damage is the price you pay when you allow someone this lethal on a football field. The Broncos eked out a drive to get to Seattle's side of the field, but were so dismayed with their prospects on fourth down they decided to punt. Despite beast mode finally breaking off a big run, the Broncos forced the Hawks to punt. The Broncos offense came back onto the field looking purposeful, but after a rare long completion down the field, Byron Maxwell used the patented Peanut Tillman punch-out to knock the ball free. If the Harvin return or Seattle's corresponding defensive turnover weren't the proverbial nail in the Broncos' coffin, then a Seahawks score on the next drive would certainly hammer it home. And that's just what the Seahawks did. Outside of his first wayward pass of the game to Zach Miller in the flat, Wilson displayed near perfect ball placement on every throw in this game. Offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell could sense Russell feeling himself and went to a rare spread formation on first down. Russ rifled a pass to Jermaine Kearse, who caught the smoking fastball out away from his body, and though Jermaine wasn't known for his run-after-the-catch ability, he broke about 5 tackles to get to pay dirt. Chop Chop was never a star in Seattle, but is probably the best NFL wide receiver the University of Washington has produced, and he owns some of the biggest catches in Seahawks history. There was still well over a quarter of football left to be played, but there was not a chance in hell the Broncos had any hope. None. Zero. Zip. Zilch. Nada. All that remained was for Manning to frantically general over an army of beaten men. Yet, Peyton is a Hall of Famer for a reason. He quickly worked the offense up the field, and Demaryius Thomas made a phenomenal catch with Byron Maxwell hanging on him to finally put the Broncos on the board. How many onside kick attempts do you see to start the fourth quarter? The Broncos attempted the low percentage play, and Zach Miller recovered. Again, Coach Bevel seemed to recognize Wilson had entered some kind of zone. Rather than just get fearful and predictably bang Lynch up the middle, they let Russ cook. He capped off sweet throw after sweet throw with another laser rocket to Baldwin.
Look how early he threw that.
That's confidence.
Passionate Doug Baldwin had seen Curse's yak magic on the previous drive and said, "Hold my beer." He first used Maverick's approach from Top Gun.
I'm gonna hit the brakes, he'll fly right by. You're gonna do what?
Next, he had to deal with the head-hunting linebacker. Doug used a Muhammad Ali duck under the linebacker's right hook tackle and then launched himself into the end zone. Denver never had a chance. The defense continued to suffocate Manning's pocket and blast the receivers whenever they had an inch. Up by a mile, Marshawn Lynch kicked off his shoes, and Coach Carroll put Tavares Jackson into the game to preserve his starting quarterback's health. In a Super Bowl, T-Jack and Turbo Turbin helped bleed out the rest of the clock. Game over, Seahawks win. The Super Bowl. The youngest team to win a Super Bowl in NFL history was led by the third oldest head coach to ever lead his team to glory. Seahawks fans came from across the country to take over New York's MetLife Stadium. And as God seemed to wink at the 12th man by the Hawks scoring in the first 12 seconds of the first quarter, so too did he offer a follow-up when Percy Harvin returned the first half kickoff in, you guessed it, 12 seconds. This was the kind of victory an innocent child imagines. We're going to beat the best offense ever, and they're going to be like our biggest former rival from the AFC West, and we're going to be awesome, and they're not going to do nothing, and everything we do is going to work. Best team of all time, the end. As the game ended, the Seahawks fans took to the New York streets. Chants of Seahawks echoed up and down Manhattan's Main Street, in the bars and subway cars. For one beautiful moment, not seen since the Sonics' 1979 championship, Seattle claimed the title and beyond. For this also felt like the beginning of a new dynasty. So many young stars with so many years ahead of them, the sky was the limit. Let the run of championships begin. But football can be a fickle bitch. And when she points her ire your way, the downfall is inevitable. For a variety of reasons, the Seahawks never got back to these same heights again. The dynasty broke down. Infighting, clout chasing, but mostly injuries derailed what could have been. The 2013 Seahawks team still left its indelible mark. The defense put a run of dominant seasons together that cemented their greatness beyond just 1 year. Teams throughout the league started hiring Seahawks coordinators and copying their once scoffed-at scheme. Some teams used to avoid cornerbacks over 6 feet tall as though it was a medical condition. After the Seahawks' success, now pretty much every team in the league has one, and they're certainly sought after. Stats will never tell the whole story of beast mode, but he will forever be considered a gold standard running back of this era when it's all said and done. Russell Wilson continues his rise through the ranks of great quarterbacks on his way to the Hall of Fame. Earl, Richard, and Bobby will join him as well. Coach Carroll, too, the conductor of the train, who put together a young team of unique talents by having a vision for why it could work when so many questioned his approach. Carroll conquered his doubters and even his nemesis to build a team that will forever be placed amongst the pantheon of great Super Bowl teams in NFL history. The Legion of Boom. Young, hungry, and violent. Beast Mode. B-Max. B-Wags. Belly Roll Brandon. Black Santa. Bruce. And KJ. Big Red. Dangerous. Angry Doug. Chop Chop. Clemens. Averill. And No Mercy Percy. Oh, I'll tell you, those Broncos never had a chance.